This article appeared in the New York Times, and it made quite a buzz. It says, Commando Network coordinates flow of weapons in Ukraine, officials say. A secretive operation involving U.S. Special Operation Forces hints at the scale of the effort to assist Ukraine's still outgunned military. And it was written by 3 people. It would take 3 people to write this article. From 2015 to early this year, American Special Forces and National Guard instructors trained more than 27,000 Ukrainian soldiers at the Yavoriv Combat Training Center in western Ukraine, near the city of Lviv. Pentagon officials have said. Military advisors from about a dozen allied countries also trained thousands of Ukrainian military personnel in Ukraine over the past several years. But even as the Biden administration has declared it will not deploy American troops to Ukraine, some CIA personnel have continued to operate in the country secretly, mostly in the capital, Kiev, directing much of the vast amounts of intelligence that the United States is sharing with Ukraine forces, according to a current and former official. The former Trump administration official said Special Operations Command had small groups of American operators working in the field with Ukrainian officials before the war. The American teams were sometimes called Jedbur, a reference to a World War II effort to train partisans behind enemy lines. The modern special operations teams mainly focused on training in small unit tactics, but also worked on communications, battlefield medicine, reconnaissance, and other skills requested by Ukrainian forces. Shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February, the Army's 10th Special Forces Group, which before the war had been training Ukrainian commandos at a base in the country's west, they quietly established a coalition planning cell in Germany to coordinate military assistance to Ukrainian commandos and other Ukrainian troops. The cell has now grown to 20 nations. So they have their special ops set up in Germany with 20 other nations' special ops, and they're all special opping the shit out of Ukraine. The cell, which was modeled after a structure used in Afghanistan, is part of a broader set of operational intelligence coordination cells run by the Pentagon's European Command to speed Allied assistance to Ukrainian troops. At Ramstein, I've been there. At Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, I've been there. I had some schnitzel. I did. For example, a U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard team called Grey Wolf provides support, including on tactics and techniques, to the Ukrainian Air Force, a military spokesman said. They have a casino. They have a casino at that Air Force base, at that air base. Oh, you can gamble, put it that way. Anyway, Jackson, now I know you follow this kind of stuff closely. Why was this so significant, you think, that because it revealed our deep involvement in Ukraine?
Well, we've known this for quite some time, and I think you've even put up segments on your show in which Yahoo was reporting on the fact that we were training Ukrainian special ops in the United States.
Okay, if I did that, I forgot.
Battalions of Ukrainian forces, thousands upon tens of thousands of troops, far more than they even admitted to there. But it's the fact that now the New York Times, the quote-unquote paper of record, is finally admitting to all of this, and that signifies that the people at the New York Times, Democratic Party officials, are not happy with Joe Biden's course of action with regard to potentially sending more arms there and getting more involved in Ukraine, potentially starting a war over what's going on in Lithuania with Kaliningrad. So there's some people that are opposed to what Joe Biden is doing within the Democratic Party, and they think it's a bad move, and that's why you're seeing this come out in the news.
So what do they think is a bad move? Him ratcheting up war tension, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. There's a coalition within Joe Biden's administration and also within the Pentagon that don't want him to continue focusing on Ukraine. They want him to move away from that. And then there's the pro faction of everything Ukraine, like William Burns and Victoria Nuland.
So I still don't understand why they're allowing this stuff. Because if you read the rest of that article, it talks about how Joe Biden's ramping up more and more, right? I mean, they're not stopping. They want this war to be long and drawn out, and they're actually trying to find more sanctions to put on Russia, which sounds crazy, but they're doing that.
Today, Zelensky came out for the first time and said that he wants, I mean, his word is as good as nothing, but he's saying that he thinks that this war should wrap up by winter. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens because, again, Russia is the one who is, whittling down the Ukrainian army at the moment. But there's definitely people within the New York Times who are getting signals from the upper echelon of the Democratic Party who want Joe Biden to, tamper down his tone with regard to the events in Ukraine.
So that's why it's significant. Okay.
How embarrassing is this, by the way, that they give them all this training and stuff and they're still getting creamed?
Well, we always knew they would get creamed, but you can't build an army in 5 minutes. And, we did another story about how they don't even have they don't have radios. So that's like the most essential thing for fighting. From what I understand, again, I'm not in the military, but from what the experts I've read have said, that if you don't have a radio, you can't really do a war because you have to be able to call and tell them where the enemy is so they can launch missiles to give you cover to go do your thing. And they can't do any of that, which is why a lot of the Ukrainian soldiers are deserting.
Yeah.
And it's happening every day.
Yeah.
And so, you can't, look what we tried to do in Afghanistan. How many trillions of dollars did we throw into Afghanistan trying to get their army ready? There was no army ready. You can't make another country's army ready.
You remember the video of them doing jumping jacks? Anyway, oh my God.
Did they still do the monkey bars? Because that's what the terrorists like to do. They like to do the monkey bars in the desert.
No, those guys were SEAL Team 6 compared to what we were training. They couldn't get the idea of it. It was sad to watch. And oh my God, no wonder, if it wasn't a 20-year murder fest, it would be a lot funnier.
The last thing I'll say about this story is the New York Times, despite all their faults, and all the, coups that they've cheerleaded on, they do get some important reporting out there, but it's 6, 7, 8 months after the events take place when it's important.
When it won't have an impact.
Exactly. Like what happened in Syria. They were the ones who got the truth out there. It was their reporting that got the truth out about that giant airstrike, which killed hundreds of civilians. But nothing happened. The Pentagon investigated themselves and said they did nothing wrong.
So there you are. Just want to let you know, we're way more involved than you think. We're almost at,
Well, it should wrap up by winter because Ben Stiller's got to make that Zelensky movie.
That's right. July 3rd, we're doing a live show in Los Angeles, and then we're going to Chicago, Sacramento, San Diego, Bakersfield. See you there. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets.